Does this work? It definitely works. God, that's kind of echoey and loud. Hi, everybody. How you doing? Good. How's the day been so far? I missed a lot of it. Catch me up.
Awesome.
Hell yeah. I heard Riaz was awesome. He always is. Good to see him here. I pace a lot, so this red carpet, if I go over the other side, just back me up, okay? The show is called Gastown Gable. It was really close. Gables, Anna Green Gables, East Coast. I get where that comes from.
I'm just reading from the notes.
Teleprompter screwed you on that one, dude. I just thought, I was overhearing the last talk, and I'm pretty sure that she said robots are going to be our companions. Is that real? I saw fucking Blade Runner. That's not happening for me. That is not happening for me. So I'm just going to go into my story. When I got the topic against the grain, I was really excited. We like to fashion ourselves as anti-establishment in a positive way. So when they tell us we can't do it, we just go ahead and do it all the time. We get slapped on the wrist, sometimes we get fined, but for the most part, I think we're affecting really positive change. I was born in Dundee, Scotland, as you can tell by my thick accent, and lived there for the grand total of 9 months, so I'm very patriotic. My dad whisked me away to Tunisia when I was young, and the first language I actually spoke was Arabic. I don't remember any of that, and I really wish I did. He took me from there to London and then to Calgary, where I spent some of my formative years. And then, because he thought that I should grow up really tough, he took me to Dartmouth, Nova Scotia at 9 years old, where I got my ass kicked incessantly. I spent 9 to about 15 there in high school and learned a lot about culture. Coming from the West Coast in Calgary, there's not a whole lot of multiculturalism happening in Calgary back in 78 to 83. There wasn't a whole lot of different colors or races, et cetera. And I get dropped in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, and Nova Scotia was the last stop on the Underground Railroad. And I learned a lot of shit fast. A, how to fight. B, how to talk myself out of a fight. And C, watching people's cultures and how they acted amongst really difficult situations. So it's an impoverished area, it still is. And just for an example, when I was going to high school, one of the guys that I went to school with, one of my best friends I played basketball with, he got kicked out of the house at 13. He was working at Sobeys, which is a grocery chain, and he was making $380 bi-weekly as a butcher. I'm not that old, so it actually is, it makes a lot of sense relatively. Watching people understand how to spend money and really enjoy each other's company and make something out of nothing. We play the spoons in Nova Scotia, like, come on. Learning that whole culture and understanding that was one of the best moments of my life. And then my dad decided things weren't crazy enough, so he went to Nigeria to work. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Lagos is one of the biggest populated places in the world and is also fucking terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. So my dad took me over there. He's like, this is what's going to go on. You're going to get off the plane. You have to give this guy money, this guy money, this guy money. I'm just past 15. Get off, no power in the airport, which is awesome, and a whole bunch of guys with guns. So Dartmouth was pretty messed up, but really not to this level. So I meet my dad. I'm trying to be tough, of course, too, right? And obviously, like, tucked in shirt. And I'm excited to see my father. I look like a square. And I'm worried I'm going to get shot, actually. Don't get shot, so dodge that bullet, literally. And then spend over the next 3 years the better part of 8 to 10 months in Nigeria, in Port Harcourt, Warri, and Lagos. And things changed for me very drastically then. So I'd been amongst struggle at my high school and with all my friends, but nothing to that caliber. I saw actual dead bodies. I was like, wow, this shit really happened. This isn't just on TV. And I was affected really heavily by one thing, and I'll share it with you. It was Christmas, and we went to a resort just outside of Warri, about an hour-and-a-half drive. And I was waiting in the water, and I was so stoked and sort of elated because it's constant pressure there. You never know what's going to happen. There's lots of checkpoints and stops, and it gets really crazy. So waiting in the water, not a care in the world. And I felt something on the bottom of my foot, like this. So of course you flip out. I'm like, it's a shark. Well, it wasn't a shark. And I stayed stable. I was like, okay, I'll just freeze, and whatever it is will go past me, and I'm obviously not very palatable. So it keeps happening, and keeps happening, keeps happening. And the water is pretty clear, and I reach down, and as I reach down, I feel this. And it doesn't have any grip. but it's a human hand. So I flip out, obviously. Swim to shore. My parents, I'm going crazy. And death is very, very different in Africa. Life is not given the exact same weight that we give it here. So somebody had messed up, the story went, tied rock to ankle, drop in water, end of problem. I couldn't cope. I didn't know how that was possible at all, and how little human life could be valued. So it set a tone for me, it really struck a chord. There's lots of other stories like that that affected me between 15 and sort of 18. And it desensitized me, but also made me hypersensitive at the same time. So I could see messed up things, and I would internalize them. And then by internalizing them, I've learned a lot of things about how to deal with people and stress situations and pressure. And whenever those things happen to me, I get really excited. There's an adrenaline rush. So if something breaks, something blows up, somebody quits, something that's going to make an entire business fall apart excites me. And I think that's poisonous, by the way. I'm not saying this is a good thing. Don't go to Africa and do what I did unintentionally. It's not a good motivator. From that time, I got a real traveling bug. This is where the story gets happy, by the way. It's gonna take a turn. And my dad moved to Melbourne, Australia, so I went to visit him for 2 weeks. At the time, I was studying at St. Mary's University in Halifax, doing pre-law philosophy and psychology, obviously, right? That lasted about 2 months when I woke up and realized I didn't want to lie for a living. So no offense to anybody who's a lawyer. I just didn't want to do that. Not at that point, anyway. So I shipped off and went to Melbourne, Australia, and fell in love with it. Was there for 2 weeks, came back, packed everything, went to Australia. And I spent the next 9 years in Australia traveling and owning my culinary palate, I guess, Tyrell, skills. Working in restaurants in all different facets. So dishwasher, busboy, front of house manager, bar manager, manager of chaos, all along the Great Ocean Road, and learned different cuisines. When I got dropped into Melbourne, I went to a food court at a university there called the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, and there were 12 to 15 different types of Asian cuisine. So, boy from Dartmouth, Calgary, Nigeria, we have one type of cuisine that's Asian in Halifax, Nova Scotia at the time I'm growing up. It's mall Chinese food. So it's chicken balls, it's wontons, it's egg rolls, it's usually being cooked by Lebanese guys. So my brain explodes. I'm like, Malaysian, Singaporean, what even is that? And all the blends of these flavors, and it awoke something inside me, and I wanted to chase all these different flavors and chase all these different cuisines, and that never stopped. So I would work in different positions at different jobs just to learn what that was. Pardon me. At that point, I went back to school because I was so good at it the first time, and decided I'd study public relations and radio presentation. Makes a ton of sense still. I did 1 year and 3/4. I actually almost finished the degree, but I fell in love with playing records. It's like, records are amazing, and rap music is still amazing, so I should be a DJ, because my parents would be really, really proud of me if I played rap music. So I did, and got pretty good at it, and dropped out of university, and spent the next 5 to 6 years playing records professionally with amazing groups, and learned something else. Again, you're constantly learning, you're constantly being taught. And what I learned there was courage. And I had a lot of friends in the rap scene in Australia, and for those of you who aren't familiar with that, you can imagine an Australian accent rapping. Not exactly the biggest sales pitch in the world, right? But with a very good group of friends of mine, the Hilltop Hoods, we pushed really heavy, pushed really heavy, pushed really heavy. They broke on radio, and now they sell 3 to 4 times platinum in their own country using their own accent. Taught me something too. I was like, okay, this works. Long and the short of it is, come back to Canada as I get kicked out of Australia. That's a story for another time. And figure out where I want to be. Like, what am I going to do in Canada? Where am I going to go? Went back to Nova Scotia. Literally, if I had taken a picture when I left and a picture when I touched down, exactly the same. A few more gray hairs, but nothing has moved. Come across, go to Toronto. It doesn't like me. I don't like it. keep moving across, and then get to Vancouver. And it's late 2004, early 2005, and fall completely in love with the city. And not because of what the city is, but in my mind, what I think the city can be. So there's all this vacant space, and at that time, a lot of businesses, and I mean no disrespect to anybody, were solid 6.5, 7s. Nobody's really taking these big risks, like, let's try this concept. I ended up working for Carrie and Nico Schuurmans at Chambar, a Belgian restaurant, which was an amazing experience. These 20-somethings open this restaurant, Belgian French, yeah, sure, that's gonna fly. Becomes the most popular restaurant in the city instantaneously, lineups down the street every day, and they're still flying in their year 6. Take everything I can from that and then get unceremoniously let go by Nico, essentially, over a bottle of whiskey. He says, I think your time is done here. I've used that line since, by the way. And I'm like, what do you mean? I love it here. I think I'm doing a really great job. He's like, it's not that you're not, it's that you have to do something else. So I went and consulted, and my first job was working for Holt Renfrew in their opening and setting up 12 bars across the 4 levels. I hated that job, and they hated me. Terrible, terrible people. Really, though. Can you make a Cosmopolitan with a grapefruit? No, I can't. I have a reputation to uphold. Arrogance always gets the better of you, right? Yeah, a reputation, it's Holt Renfrew, yeah. Anyway, so they would have fired me if they could have replaced me in time. They didn't. And I find myself right after that not ever being a consultant again, and end up pretty broke. Got a car, which is cool, not much money, and I'm living on a couch in East Vancouver with my best friend Alex Yuso, who owns Sharks and Hammers, Sea Monster Sushi, and Catalog Gallery with me. We didn't own any of that at the time, by the way. So we're living in a 1-bedroom apartment, him, myself, and his brother, who is a paranoid schizophrenic, who's recently come up from LA and has a very serious drug habit, and Alex's heart is breaking every day, as is mine, living in this basically one room together. Quick anecdote, just to tell you how crazy it was. Alex and I come home from, well, he's working at B Street Records, I'm not doing anything. And Ivan, God bless him, has dismantled all of the plumbing in the apartment. All of it. Sinks, toilets, forget it. And Alex and I sort of look at each other, I'm like, do you know anything about this? He's like, no. I'm like, let's get a wrench and figure it out. We put the plumbing back together, and that's the chaos that sort of is still instilled in me, and it hits me every time in situations like that, how fragile we are, and how important it is to be respectful of others who struggle and fight. So from there, of course, the smart step for me is to open a restaurant in Gastown, a block from Pigeon Park, in 2006, 2007, because it's thriving down there. There's the Irish Heather, the Blarney Stone, vomit everywhere, and that's it. So I find this space. I'm like, hey, we should open a fine dining restaurant here, because people are definitely going to want to come. We open it. My amazing partners and I take 2 people from Lumiere and Rob Feeney's sous chef, and boom, we put it together. And we're off to the races, and there's media coverage, and it's happening, and I'm excited. That year, we were the most award-winning restaurant in Canada. So, affirmation, let's go. We are not making any money at all. We're drinking everything and really screwing it all the way around. I learned a ton in my time operating that restaurant hands-on and being in it every day. And from there, just projected and thought anything is possible, and we have to engage the people that we love who want to do something else. And so took on partner after partner after partner in unconventional ways that were just friends of mine. We opened the Diamond, we opened Sharks and Hammers. We did all of those things that led us to a year where I was opening 3 businesses new, and then moving Bonita to another location, and then trying to figure out what old Bonita was going to do in a year. So I got approached about Save On Meats. I was like, of course, obviously, great choice. Idiot. Don't ever do more than 1 business at a time, by the way. Don't ever think it's going to happen. It's really stupid. Somehow, through almost killing a lot of my friends and myself, we got them all open, and it was great. And Save On initially started as a project that would be, instead of a social enterprise, an enterprise that's social. So I wanted to flip the model against the grain. So I looped that in finally, sorry. So So we open this thing, we're like, okay, we're gonna do some sustainable employment, and we're gonna work with Recycling Alternative and United We Can and Soul Food Gardens and all of our friends that do real good barrier employment. And I'm like, no way, we can do way better than that. And we partner with Potluck Cafe, and they're laying all their people off in the summer, 24 to 26 deep. So we hire all of them, because that's gonna work out. And completely fuck it. Completely, in every way that we could fuck it, we did. No cell phones, no contacts. How do we manage these people? And they're barriered, and some are still struggling with addiction and paranoid schizophrenics, and amazing people, but nobody there to manage them. So we learned a lot really quickly from that. Now, I'm happy to say, Anna Ferrant, sitting in the front row here, my senior community advisor, just clap for her, even though you don't know what she does yet. Anna was working at Insight for a lot of years and is one of my best friends. Came over to save my ass so I didn't continue to fuck it. And we work very closely together. Now we have tons of barrier employees of all varying skill sets. And Anna works very closely with them to massage the relationships and make sure we don't fail them, because ultimately that was the real problem. I can always find people to work for me, but these people are excited about a position that we screwed. Now we work every day to make sure that doesn't happen. We also have a program that I'm very excited about, and it's against the grain, because we do fine dining, sushi, cocktail bar, and we have a diner. Now we feed over 480 people a day in 7 single-room occupancies, 365 days a year. And we fucked that when we started too. You know who doesn't want to eat kale and chickpeas? The people living in the Gastown Hotel. They are not interested in that at all. So we massage that relationship. We now work with over 24 community partners, and we're working on food security as a whole without the government, because that's constantly changing. So if we grab funding, then they don't like us when the term changes. So we're doing this all as an actual enterprise that will be sustainable. We want to feed 1,500 people by January. We want to do more employment. We want to take all the wasted food in the city and put it to use. So just small goals. But we're going to do it. And we're going to buck back against the system that insists that you go for grants and work with the feds and the province, and there's litigation and health and all of this sort of shit. We didn't do that before. And I'm going to close with this statement. Before the wars happened, this is going to sound ominous, right? There was community. There was a real sense of community and looking after your own community because you're supposed to. And then taxation came into play, and taxation said, we'll look after your fellow man's health, well-being, and a house. They don't. It doesn't work. The system's been broken since it started. So people walk by on the street like, I'm not going to give you anything because I don't need to, because the government does that because they take tax from me. Eradicate that thought from your mind, because it's bullshit. You need to help people. You need to work within your own community and make it happen. And if any of you want to talk about that, I'm going to block that way. Thank you.